Okay, so last night Clay and I watched Shark Tale. I watched this movie in theaters when it came out in 2004. I genuinely don't know if I have seen the entire thing since. I've probably seen like a clip. I've probably seen like a review of it once or twice. I remember I remember the designs from the movie. I mean, you kind of see them and they'll be just burned into your brain forever. They're freaking terrifying. Um, I remember the movie not being particularly good, but also as a kid not hating it. I mean, I also liked Kangaroo Jack as a kid when I saw it in theater. So, kid me's taste in movies, you can't always rely on it. But even then, I think it was kind of like something like Spirit, where I'd seen it before, but wasn't like, yeah, I love this movie. It's like, yeah, I've seen it, and it's fine, it is what it is. So we watched it, and by watch it, I mean, I was playing Puzzle League, because I've been playing it with my friends lately, and I'm really bad at it, but it's really fun. And I was paying attention, like, I had the music on mute, which hurts to do, because I love the music in Puzzle League. I grew up watching that old-ass anime, watching the dub. I have a CD somewhere that has all of that music, like the original, like, lyrical songs. And so just hearing these, like, MIDI versions of it as I'm, like, trying to match shit, I'm like, oh, this is good. This makes me so happy on just such a primal level, man. But I played it on mute so I could listen to the movie. And yes, I was looking at the screen, but then in between matches, which, I'm just playing computers, I'm looking at the screen, I'm watching the movie, and every now and then I'm still kind of looking up, and every time I did, I was like, let me go back to this. I don't want to look at this. So this morning, because it's now like 4 o'clock, I was thinking about what I wanted to say in this video. And I was prepared to lambaste this film and cook it alive. This is an ugly movie that there's some that, like, the sharks look fine. I know Clay didn't have a problem with Sykes, the pufferfish voiced by Scorsese, which, yeah, Martin Scorsese is a voice actor in this movie. Like, what the fuck? I'm not sure. He's definitely not as bad as some of the others, but he still just looks weird. But, gosh, like, the fishes look ugly as sin. I was ready to talk about how unfunny this movie is. There's a few good jokes, like, at the very start of the movie when they're, like, showing the town, and then there's a dude running a sushi restaurant who gets mad that he has no customers. That's really funny to me. You have Lola, the Angelina Jolie fish, who tells Oscar, the Will Smith fish, like, I'm very superficial. That made me laugh. I don't know if it was even supposed to, or if it's just, yeah, she's just being really on the nose. But to me, just the bluntness of it, I thought was really funny. And there's a scene with Sykes is on the phone with, what's his name? Don Lenny, the Robert De Niro shark. He's like, hey, turn on your TV, see what the hell is going on. Things aren't going his way. Turn the TV off. What are you even doing talking on the TV when we're on the phone? And then later, what do you mean I told you to turn the TV off? Turn it back on, see what the fuck is going on. Like, it was very entertaining to me. I mean, I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, that's like top tier humor, but like, I enjoyed it. But there's a lot of humor in the movie that just doesn't work. And it's not like, oh yeah, that joke didn't quite land. Like, there was a lot of painfully unfunny humor. And I remember at one point, I don't even remember what the joke was, but there was a joke, and I remember just saying out loud, every time this movie gets close to working, and then Clay was just like, thank you. I'm so glad I'm not the only one thinking, because, like, there's times where it almost works, and then there'll just be these terrible jokes that are so unfunny, and they almost hurt to listen to. And I was ready to talk about how this is a very poorly done underdog story. Because this is something Clay was kind of talking about last night. And I'm like, you know what? I get what he's saying. I get what he means. His point was, what makes an underdog story work is that there is something to root for. It's that it's me against the world. Maybe it's the poor upbringing. Maybe it's the fact that, people just keep counting them out. But there's something that they have. There's some kind of talent. Maybe they're a really good cook. Maybe they're a really good writer. Maybe they're a musician. Maybe they're a dancer. But there is something that they have that is good, that can be nurtured. And that if this is what propels them to stardom, or gets them that job they wanted, or just gets them out of that deadbeat, no good town, you believe it and you root for it. And this is a movie that doesn't have that. Our main character is a bum. Okay, there is another joke that I do like. It's like, are you going to keep working at the whale wash? I barely work there now. I'm like, I like that. I got a laugh out of me. But it's like, yeah, like he barely shows up to work. He has a gambling addiction. His best friend gives him a priceless family heirloom. Like, I want you to have this and sell it because it'll take care of your gambling debts. And he uses that to gamble and loses it all. What a great guy. And his whole thing is, he's like, yeah, my dad worked at the car wash, the whale wash. He was like, he worked at a car wash. I thought he was the coolest dude. And then I learned that other people made fun of him and thought he was a loser. And I was that guy's loser son by association. So what I want is, I just want to be famous. I want to live at the top of the reef. I want everyone to know who I am. I want to be famous for the sake of being famous, and I have no skills and no talent to actually put me there. I just want it because I deserve it. And it doesn't quite work. And I was ready to talk about all of that. And I still have, because it is all things that are worth talking about. Because Shark Tale is not a good movie. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, okay, maybe this movie is better than I thought. Number one, I have to talk about Lenny, the Jack Black shark. This is a character who is a vegetarian shark that, my interpretation of it is that it is not that he chose this, it's just kind of the way he was born. And it's something he would change if he could, to fit in better with his family, but he just can't. His family wants him to be like other sharks, but it just doesn't work, and he tries his best. And while his father clearly loves him very much, he also is like, I wish you weren't like this. I wish you weren't so difficult. But by the end of the movie, he is given a speech by Oscar, the Will Smith fish, who tells him, he's like, hey man, so what if your son eats different food? So what if your son likes to dress different and holds himself out as different? He's still your son, and we love him and respect him and accept him. Why can't you? And he's like, I just need to give my son a hug. And he hugs his son, and it's all sweet and shit. Like I said earlier, this is a movie that came out in 2004. And I am honestly very surprised to see a gay character in 2004 treated with respect. Because let's call a spade a spade. That is what Lenny is supposed to be. He's a vegetarian, but this is clearly a metaphor, for a kid wanting to come out and having difficulty because their parent won't accept them. But Lenny is consistently likable. Is he particularly funny? Not really, but he's likable. And he does not come across as just a stereotype. And maybe that is because they're not trying to make it very, he's gay. He's a vegetarian, but again, it's what he is. But, in that time frame, from what I remember, from just, shows I would watch, movies, all that stuff, a gay character was not a character. They were not a person. They were just a stereotype. And I remember I was kind of telling Clay this earlier. I was like, that's kind of like, in its own weird way, it was almost like a modern minstrel show. You know, that was the person that was, you could always, like, they were going to dress a certain way, walk a certain way, talk a certain way, move their hands and when they talked a certain way. And it is not like that in fiction anymore. To the point where, like, if you rewatch shows like I love me some Seinfeld, but like Seinfeld, for like basically any sitcom, if there is a gay character, it's usually not a main character, where it'll be like, this is the joke of the episode. Here is the gay guy hitting on Chandler, or something like that. They are generally going to be played a certain way, and the entire joke of the episode is, boy, it's really uncomfortable that this guy is gay, or it's like, man, that this guy cross-dresses. You're like, wow, this would not fly today. This is so different. And for Shark Tale to be a movie that has essentially a gay character in 2004, and to be honestly kind of respectful and genuinely sweet about it, especially by the end, I have to give it its credit for that. As much as I don't want to credit Shark Tale, I have to. And as I was thinking about that, I thought of something else. About how this movie came out in 2004, but was surprisingly progressive. The idea of a main character who wants to be famous, not to escape, their terrible life, because it's not like his life is that bad aside from his debts, which is clearly his own fault. Not because he's got this great talent, but to be famous for the sake of being famous. Did this movie just predict, like, media culture? Like, social media culture? And I know, granted, I don't want to say, like, oh yeah, every person that's on Twitter is just there because they want to be famous. Every person on YouTube is just doing it to be famous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because, like, I know, like, there are people who make great content on YouTube, and I'm not just like, oh yeah, this is just a clout chaser. This is genuinely interesting content, or it's so genuinely funny. You have people on Twitter who, like, I genuinely like following because, again, like, they post funny shit, or they're a really good artist, and, like, there's a genuine talent there, and I love looking at it. Whether it's NSFW or not, I like both. But I know at least the stigma, especially with TikTok. And I will be the first person to admit, I don't really go on to TikTok. My familiarity with TikTok legitimately begins and ends with seeing a cute girl with big boobs who will have a TikTok account and be like, oh, let me download TikTok and see their videos real quick. Okay, I've seen their videos, and then I delete TikTok. That's it. That is literally all I use TikTok for, and I don't even use it that often. But I know the stigma is annoying people just trying to be famous, trying to get their 15 minutes, and I don't know, if they do enough funny dances, they'll get famous for longer and somehow have a career and make millions of dollars or whatever the fuck. Shark Tale to me does not quite become a critique of that, but it almost feels like an examination of that. Here is someone without really a whole lot of skill to lean back on. They're not creating. They're not really offering anything new. They just want to be famous to be famous. And they get that, but it doesn't last. Like, I remembered a line from The Swan Princess, so, reaching down into the bag of references. But it's this movie based on Swan Lake, which I've actually never seen performed, and I would love to, because I'm not a dancer, but I love dancing. I love watching people perform ballet. I think I would really like Swan Lake. Anyways, there's a line where the main antagonist is trying to get Odette to marry him. And she's like, A, no, ew, fuck you, you murdered my dad, kidnapped me, turned me into a swan, I hate you. Number 2, why? You've got all this power, all this magic, why don't you just wibbly wobbly and then get yourself the kingdom? To which he tells her, because once you steal something, you spend your whole life fighting to keep it. The idea being, if you marry me and I get it legitimately, I can just enjoy being king because who's going to stop me? I did it through legitimate means. But if I do it through illegitimate means, which I'm a bastard, I don't mind doing it, I'm going to have to keep fighting to keep it, so I won't get to enjoy it. That's kind of what was happening in Shark Tale. This is not a dude who really earned all of this fame and wealth and respect. It was built upon janky circumstances and a lie. It is pure bullshit. He's getting his 15 minutes, but there's no foundation for it to last. And that's interesting to me. Now, granted, the movie doesn't really fully commit to the idea, and maybe if it was a more modern movie actually trying to comment or critique on modern culture, it would do it a little better. I think a really good ending for that kind of idea would be once it's been revealed that, yeah, this was all bullshit, this was a lie, he would go back to his job, possibly even get fired. Well, I don't know. I don't know if he'd quite get fired, but at the very least, he would probably go back to where he was before. But he would still have the people around him so long as he treated them well. Because, like, yeah, like, we're still your homies, we still like you. But now you're just back here, your 15 minutes are over. Was it worth it? Yeah, I guess. Or, no, it wasn't. But, something else I have to say is, like I just said, so long as he treats them well, and something I do have to say about Oscar the Will Smith fish is he does. So, Angie, or as Clay called her repeatedly, the girlfish, that's his best friend. She's the one who has the massive crush on him. She's the one that gives him, her grandmother's pearls to sell to get rid of his debts. And after he becomes rich and famous, he buys them back and he gives her like more of them. She's like, oh, it's like, she thought he was about to propose. She's like, oh, it's my grandmother's pearls. With interest. See, I never forget my friend. He's like, I know you were with me when I was low, when I was nobody. So not only do I owe you, I'm gonna hook you up. Like when he still hangs out with her, he still takes her and invites her to all the parties. Because it would have been so easy to make this superficial jackass just blow her off, be a dick to her, all of that, but he doesn't. Now, he still wants to date someone else, someone who he knows, who even told him, is very superficial and does not care about him as a person. But that's also his choice to make. Angie was his friend. She was nice to him. It doesn't make her entitled to him. And that's what's really interesting to me. It's that Oscar's personality does not really change when he gets wealthy. He is like, yeah, like now I just have the lifestyle I always wanted, but he's still nice to his friends. He's maybe a little more big-headed, but he was already incredibly big-headed. But Angie is the one who's like, no, why are you, like, essentially she comes across as, why are you dating someone else who doesn't actually love you when I've loved you the entire time? She's the one that actually acts really entitled to him, which I think is an interesting role reversal. Now, again, they don't super commit to it because after he gets that talk, she's like, I loved you the whole time. He's like, huh. Oh, shit, I guess I loved her back. Because the movie had to end in a nice bow. But, and it's not to say, like, I really wanted this movie to have a sad ending or anything. But it was just, as I thought about it, it's like, there's way more to Shark Tale than I thought. And of course, this could all be an entire like, obviously, this came out in 2004. They were like, you know what? People are gonna be on an app called Wow, I got an accent there. Ow, down here now TikTok. But I need a second to laugh at how fucking bonkers that sounded. Obviously, they didn't predict the future of, like, internet culture and internet clout and all that. So I feel like it is, yes, it is, and it's meant to be an underdog story where you root for the character, but there's nothing to really root for, so it doesn't work. But watching it in 2023, it's surprisingly apt at predicting areas of modern culture. And I kind of have to give it respect for that, whether it was meant to be on purpose somehow or a complete accident. The more I thought about it, the more I appreciated it. It's still ugly. Maybe that's on purpose. Maybe that is part of the whole, superficially, this thing is ugly and nasty, but there's something there deep down below the surface, kind of like the first Shrek movie. Which is not something I thought I would say. It's still unfunny. And I don't think they were like, yeah, well, the movie is intentionally really unfunny to really get the message across. I mean, maybe, but it still hurt how unfunny it could be. The plot is still very generic by the numbers. The characters are not particularly interesting. But the ideas that may or may not have been intentional, this might just be me reading way too much into Shark Tale, and it probably is. But I gotta call it as I see it. And surprisingly, I guess pun intended, there's more below the surface than I initially thought there would be. So, on the initial viewing, my reaction was, this is way worse than Spirit. This movie is awful, and I hate it. I hate everything about it. And then, thinking about it is like, I think I got more out of this than I did Spirit. It's not a good movie. Even with these interesting ideas, I don't think it is. But it's not a complete nothing burger either. So, I don't know, go see it? I can't believe I just said that. I guess see it and see if I'm just crazy, because I probably am. Or if maybe I'm onto something, because again, I don't think it quite sticks the landing with these examinations of modern culture that they in no way could have predicted. But it gets way too close for a movie that came out in 2004. What's next? I think Madagascar is next, which is a movie I've seen and don't really care for. But Clay and I are actually going to watch Puss in Boots too. And I'll do a video of it after I've seen it. Yeah, we're going to go out of order for this one, but it's in theaters. I've heard it's phenomenal, and I'm really excited to go see it. Hopefully I can do a recording of it today. If not, I'll try to do one tomorrow. Till then, watch Shark Tale.